Welcome to By the Streams, a resource from Manchester House of Prayer. Our heart is that we would each have a real relationship with God, being like the trees in Psalm 1, planted by the streams of living water, that our roots would go down deep. In this episode, we finish up our conversation with John Kyle, the events manager for David's Tent. We're still talking about community, and we talk a little bit about connection and how we can sometimes feel disconnected from community and some of the things we can do to deal with that. And then John shares a couple of stories from last summer's David's Tent in the US. So enjoy.
You want to go to an event because there's a famous person there, and I think a lot of Christianity, the way Christianity is going, Western Christianity is going, is based around the cult of personality, and inherently, it's not bad to want to go to an event because someone of character and anointing is there, and you want to engage with what they're saying. And similarly, as musicians or as worship leaders or as event organizers, it's not inherently bad to want to get someone of note to come and be part of what you're doing and to spend time with them, to do stuff with them. I think all of these things come down to the principle of motive and heart. And actually, this is the relationship thing. Ultimately, God doesn't want to come to our event. God wants to have a relationship with us. Ultimately, God doesn't want us to go to his event. He wants to have a relationship with us. And I think then the beauty of our relationship with him, the beauty of being sons and daughters, is that we have, to use a political phrase, we have agency, meaning we have the opportunity to express the beauty of his creation, express the things that he has put in our heart. We have the opportunity to express those things together and in the world. So I guess at the root of it is, for all of our individual journeys with God, for all of us who do events, for all of us who run ministries, the question time and time again should be, where does this fit within the context of my relationship with God, and then my Christ-like relationship with my brothers and sisters? And there are times that the reality is that those get abused either by accident, and often much more rarely on purpose, and often by accident. A friend of mine who you probably know as well, a guy called Alan McKinley, who's an amazing Scottish dude who now lives in California. He wrote something recently about comparison, and he talked about how destructive comparison is, and just the triviality of how we compare ourselves to one another. And I think we would rarely go out there to be like, I am purposefully gonna compare myself to such and such, or compare my music to such and such, or compare my the number of people that follow me on social media to such and such. It tends to be that comparison often comes from a place of hurt within us, often comes from a place of doubt, often comes from that point whenever we're not asking God who we are, and then again, to sort of come full circle, I guess, the idea of connection both with him and with each other is our connection with him solidifies and creates a reality about our identity in which we don't need to live on comparison. And then in turn, he gives us the model in which we can love each other, and we say, hey, you're my friend, I love you, you're my brother, you're my sister, I know you. We're not comparing here, whatever is going on, we sort of come in here, there's nothing to be ashamed of or feel guilty about, because love takes away all those things, I guess. And then I guess to your question number 7 of 8, you asked about you asked about people who feel disconnected, and perhaps don't, feel like there's no opportunity to connect. I think the first thing to say is, I hear you. uh, I totally get that. My uh, my experience, very briefly, my experience of the last 10 weeks. Uh, I We got locked down, so I wasn't allowed to weren't allowed to leave the house. Um, and then I got furloughed, which means that I am not allowed to work. And a lot of sort of like complicated things about why we were furloughed. But the upshot that has had on my life, my work with Davis Tent is not just my 9 to 5 job, it's my community. Like, these guys are my community and my friends. Uh and the fact that it's a job that I get paid for a is a huge blessing for me, but also means that life is very complicated whenever I'm furloughed.
Sure.
because there's all these questions like, it, I can reach out, but not in the context of Davis Tent, etc. So my experience has been one of actually quite extreme disconnection over the last 10 weeks, and I have felt that incredibly. That's been incredibly difficult for me, and so I feel hugely disconnected. And again, in terms of my personal experience, what I have found, um what I have found has been going on with me is, in an effort to connect, I will actually consume, be it, you know people live streaming worship on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever it might be. And what happens is, I consume it, but I have no opportunity to connect or to converse. And there's this weird thing where I then begin to impose their views and ideas, which again aren't inherently wrong. In fact, I would say generally are inherently good and positive things. And the uh, live streaming of church and people putting the message out there is so powerful and been so good. The issue is my consumption of it as opposed to their presentation of it. But I consume it, and because I'm consuming and not connecting, it becomes about comparison, and immediately it becomes about my own self-doubt or my own pride, which essentially are like the sides of the same coin.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess my all that to say is, I understand the feeling of disconnection because I'm feeling it as well. I think I think there are a few things that are really good, both to do now and then to plan going forward. One is one is to not be afraid to reach out to people and use the imperfect system for perfect means. So as bad as Zoom is, um, let's use it. Let's connect. Let's connect on Zoom, and do simple things like meet in the park. And then I think the another one is, let's plan for what happens as we come out of this. Like, let's not plan to consume church on a live stream as we come out of this, and as we begin to meet again. If there's opportunity in our local churches to become part of small groups, let's do it. Like, let's engage in our local church. um let's engage with the things that are going on. If we can volunteer, let's do it. um and if we can be involved, let's do it.
It's good. It's really good. Um, One of the other things that I like about you, John, is I think you have the best stories of anyone I've ever met. You've got great stories. You're a storyteller. That's what you do. Um, and you can pick a story to tell. But I remember you telling a story about David's Tent US, and I think it involved. I think you'd gone off site and something had gone wrong. Like, just tell us a fun story and then we'll close out.
I'll tell you two stories about DTUS.
Okay.
The first one was this was our first event, and we were doing it in this essentially like a fairground. So it had a race course. It's sort of one of these like multi-purpose big venues. They had a race course there and they do horse racing, but it also hosts lots of other events, like there's another big music festival that happens there. So anyway, we're hosting the event in this fairground, and where Davis Tent is being hosted is essentially like the paddock that they parade the horses in before they go and race. So it's this beautiful sort of like amphitheatered space with sort of buildings around the side, and there's this grassy area. And it had been beautiful, and obviously we're going through the night, so we had two stages, one for during the day and then a smaller stage at night. I had left site. I'd left site. It was, I think, the end of the second day, and I had left site about 12:30. I was the end of the third day, and the first 2 days I'd been off site at sort of like 2 a.m. And this third day, I'd sort of got all my ducks in a row. We had our team meeting, at midnight, whatever it was, as you do at music festivals or worship festivals.
Sure.
And I decided, do you know what? I'm going to go home because I'm going to go and get some sleep. We don't get a lot of sleep. So I headed home. I got myself into my pajamas. I kid you not, I'm literally standing at the side of my bed about to get in, and I get this text from one of the guys on the team, a guy called Alan. And the text says, "You still up?" And I'm like, this is never going to be good. A text at 12:30 at night saying "you still up" is never good news. So I reluctantly So I text back saying, "Yep." Anyway, immediately I get a call from Alan, and Alan says, "So we've got a bit of an issue." I was like, "Okay." He says, "The sprinklers are going off." I was like, "Sorry, Alan, come again. I thought you said the sprinklers were going off." And he's like, "Yeah, the sprinklers are going off and they're soaking the stage." so okay, great, cool. So I at this stage I have no idea what to do. So I'm like, okay. Anyway, Alan, we chat for another couple of minutes, and I'm sort of like, "Can you find out what's going on?" And I was like, "Maybe they'll turn off. Please, Lord, just let them turn off. Hey, how hard can that be? Just cut." Anyway, Alan calls back a couple of minutes later and is like, "So yes, it's getting worse because more sprinklers are going off." And I was like, "Oh, sweet Lord." So I get dressed again, get back in my car. I was staying in an Airbnb, sort of 10 minutes drive from the venues. I get back in my car and I go down, and it's what's happening is the sprinklers are all timed to go off, and so it's just sections of the place, just 5 minutes of sprinklers going off, and then they would switch off. So then ensues this journey that we have around the paddock of trying to figure out which sprinkler was going to go off next, and then to try and make sure that there was nothing happening. The best bit about it, two amazing things about it. One was the security guard who was there was constantly coming up to me and Alan and talking about a global conspiracy based around the 5-cent coin. Goodness knows what he was talking about, but he honestly, this was his preoccupation. Me and Alan are standing there like, the sprinklers are going off, and you're talking to us about this conspiracy about the 5-cent coin. Mental. The other one was the hardcore worshippers. The worship didn't stop. We didn't stop. We kept going, and the guys were just there in the zone. The sprinklers came on. They would just open their eye, just shift ever so slightly to the side, and just keep on going. It was amazing. And in the end, the cycle finished, and we just carried on going. Sprinklers. The other cool story about DTUS this year was alongside us, there was another event happening called Scream Zone. And it basically does exactly what it says on the tin. It's this sort of Fright Fest, like horror show that had various tents and sort of attractions and rides, all based around sort of like scary clowns and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, we had much discussion about Scream Zone, and one of the things that had happened was people would come out of Scream Zone and like go past the entrance to David's tent and be like, "Oh, what's happening here?" And we had this chat as a team, and actually we've been praying about Scream Zone for months before because we knew that it was there, and we were like, "Lord, how can we get involved here?" Like, I was actually desperate to go and get involved. Like, for one, who are the people who organize Scream Zone? I would love to know them, and do you know what I mean? Like, try and understand, like, how do you end up organizing Scream Zone? Anyway, we had this conversation as a team about what to do with people who were coming past and wondering what was happening. And basically we said to our guys on the gate, look, at your discretion, the purpose of what we're doing here is to encourage people to engage with God and to give people the opportunity to experience God. So if there's a bunch of people there coming past, if they want to come in, just let them come in. It's cool. So one of the nights, a group of something, I think it's like 12 sort of teenagers, sort of 15 to 18, were coming past, and they were just at the gate asking what was going on. And one of our amazing team leads at the registration tent was basically like, "Do you guys want to come in?" And told them a bit about it. And we're like, "Sure, come on in." So she lets them in, invites them into DT. So they come in, and then they're sort of hanging about at the edge. And then one of our amazing stewarding team leads spots this crew of guys and girls, and so sidles over to them and just starts chatting with them and just find out a bit about them. And then what he does is he gathers a little crew of people who had come from YWAM. It was either YWAM or Bethel. It might have been some guys from Bethel. And just was like, "Guys, come on over and meet these guys who are just coming to check it out." Anyway, basically what happens is they get talking, and they eventually get praying, and 5 of these guys give their life to Jesus.
That's amazing.
Just from being invited in. Didn't have to buy tickets or anything like that. Just the opportunity that the Lord brought, which was people to come and be in his presence, and they got to engage with that, and they gave their life to the Lord. So yeah, those 2 stories kind of sum up. That's David's tent in a nutshell right there. On the one hand, you have the sprinklers, and on the other hand, you have the kids from Scream Zone coming in and getting their lives messed up by the love of Jesus.
That's amazing. So good. Thanks for doing this, John. I appreciate it.
Total pleasure. Thank you, man. It's been lovely to chat with you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We pray that you would encounter the Lord through what's been shared. To find out more about who we are, head to mhop.org.uk or find us on Facebook or Instagram at mhopuk. For information about By the Streams, head to mhop.org.uk/by the streams. Bless you.